Well, I was attracted to donuts anthropologically because people had such strong feelings about them, and in those feelings folks were focused on things like nationalism, body discipline, culture, social structure, class, so all these profound kind of consequential dimensions of our identity, but they're wrapped around a seemingly innocuous commodity, and that's like a lot of food. And I thought there was something really interesting in that such meaningful dimensions of cultural life and everyday identity were wrapped up in donuts. Well, there's kind of, there are two big periods of growth with donuts. Donuts have been made in that kind of circular torus form that you and I recognize really since the mid-19th century. And fried dough goes back to the Neolithic. But what you and I recognize as mass production and mass consumption of donuts really doesn't happen until about 1920 when donut machines are introduced. Because making a donut by hand is actually, it's a difficult task. Dealing with pastry is always a little challenging. Baking is kind of a hassle. If you've ever made donuts at home, they're a huge mess. On the other hand, baking in a machine, you can produce tons of them very inexpensively. And then the thing that happens in the 50s is all these little donut shops that are mass producing donuts, they begin to spring up along these car commuter routes as the cities suburbanize, and Indianapolis does that. You know, lots of people leave the core around and after World War II and go out to the west towards Speedway or the north toward what's now Carmel. And donut shops spring up along those routes, and the donut is a perfect commuter food. Cheap, filling, delicious, you can eat it quickly, you can drive reasonably safely while eating a donut. Donuts often do come back to kind of nationalist imagery. When you ask people overseas what is a food that's emblematic, kind of iconic of American culture, they will often point to donuts because they associate a fast food diet and high carbohydrate foods, sugary foods, and unhealthy foods, and rampant obesity. They often associate all of those things with Americans. And they often associate the encroachment of McDonald's and all these kinds of fast food joints overseas with the donut. So they often look at the donut as kind of the, if you will, the Marines leading the rest of the infantry into battle. That this is the leading wave, is the donut. The donut is right there alongside the hamburger, taking over the world, getting rid of local cuisine. All these regional cuisines all over the world are being set aside for mass American foodways. For a lot of people, a donut is sort of emblematic of the war they are waging with their body. You know, on the one hand, you have some donut consumers that embrace that desire. They realize they want to eat a donut, so they consume donuts, and they consume it knowing they're sort of breaking some dominant code. And then on the other hand, you have these folks that deny themselves donuts, who believe that this is the greatest affront to their personal bodily discipline. Is coming from a donut itself. So you have this kind of a battlefield over body discipline that for many people is symptomatic of what goes on in donut consumption. There often are kind of class divisions in the way people view donuts. Donuts are often looked at as being a sort of working class food. What is happening now with donuts, it's a little different, is we do have lots of bakeries that are producing essentially designer donuts. You know, they're trying to cater to essentially the same crowd that is catered to at Starbucks. There certainly was a point in time where we would have found the predominance of heavy cake donuts in New England, much more yeast donuts that are lighter and tend to hold a sugary glaze better in the South. But those variations actually are increasingly less visible on the landscape. Today, if you have a Krispy Kreme, obviously anywhere on the face of the planet, it tastes exactly the same. What Canadians did is create a culture around the donut with strong coffee, places where you would eat a donut. They have Tim Hortons is the home to the donut. I'm a fan of Long's Cream Horns, actually. I like super sweet donuts. I have that Southern heritage going in me. I like a donut that packs a whole lot of sweetness alongside very strong unsweetened coffee.